bring in Congressmember Jim Himes, the Democratic ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee. He would be the guy who would know this. So what I'm hearing is that on committees like yours, Congressman, the Republican plan, because they're so ashamed of this MOU and Donald Trump's behavior in this catastrophic war, is that they don't even want to talk about the MOU, that they're not even bringing it up. What's actually going on?
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right. It's a version of, what has been happening here every week since Donald Trump became president, which is, the president put something crazy up on Truth Social. The media sticks microphones and cameras in front of people's faces. And they're like, oh, I haven't seen the tweet. I haven't seen the Truth Social. This is that writ large, right? So, I mean, I can tell you two things that are of interest to the topic. Number one, I sit on the Intelligence Committee. We've had a whole bunch of hearings since the MOU was announced, but not a single one of them has been on Iran or the MOU or anything else. And I think that that's been the experience in the House Armed Services Committee as well as Foreign Affairs. The other thing I will tell you is I happen to have been on an official trip pretty much all of last week, and I was the only Democrat on it. There were 6 or 7 Republicans, and I was with them for a week, 24/7. And you know what didn't come up once? Iran did not come up once. So, you know what's going on here, right? Every single Republican knows that they just spent the last 11 years pounding on the President Obama's Iran nuclear deal, which actually succeeded, imperfect though it was, succeeded in removing the uranium and, had very limited lifting of sanctions and flows of dollars. And now all of a sudden, Donald Trump is lifting all oil sanctions. They're selling oil and we're setting up a $300 billion fund. And they just know that they cannot put themselves in a position of having to answer for what they've been saying for the last 11 years, given the way this president has surrendered to Iran in this war.
Very problematic is the fact that we can read what the MOU says. And, it's fairly clear what it says. Yes, there's a long form that needs to occur, but that's going to be implementing what is on the MOU. And there are binding terms in the MOU. But now you have Marco Rubio visiting the Middle East, and he's talking about, yeah, that's what it says, but it's not really a deal. And there are these super secret side arrangements that we know and that we're working with the Iranians, that they know it's not on the paper. And that's really what we're focused on right now. And then you have the Iranians saying, we don't know what you're talking about. The deal is what's on the MOU. And incredibly, sadly, for me, when I'm observing what's happening and the actual conduct, it is what's on the MOU and not what the Trump regime is saying. And that just has, I think, all Americans totally losing confidence in everything. And you sitting on the House Intelligence Committee, you're the one who's supposed to be able to see this. They're not even sharing with the Intelligence Committee what the heck is even happening and what these arrangements are. You can't even be like to me, Congressman, well, Ben, I'd love to share it to you, but it's in a classified. They're not telling you. That's what we know. It's undisputed.
Yeah. Look, and at the end of the day, they have to share this information under the law. And the Republicans just pounded the table about this forever when Barack Obama was negotiating the JCPOA, the nuclear deal. By law, agreements between the United States and Iran or the world community and Iran have to be passed by the United States Congress. Now, there's a whole legalistic argument about, well, okay, that's a deal. That's not an MOU. But what's really happening here is that the president got into a really unwise war, and he dwells on the fact that he sank their Navy. Okay, no surprise there. But he strengthened the position of the Iranians because the Iranians, survived our onslaught, and not just survived, right? It became a more radical, ideological, and younger regime. And it's now a regime that knows that they've got their hands around the throat of the global economy in the form of their ability to shut down the flow of stuff through the Strait of Hormuz. So we may have won the naval battle, but we absolutely lost the war and empowered the Iranians. And here's the point that gets you back to the MOU and why people are running around making up stuff about secret agreements and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. There's a lot to be said in criticism of this hideous Iranian regime. But one thing that the Persians and Iranians have been doing very, very well for about 4,000 years is negotiate, right? There's an old saying about the Iranians. They don't win wars, but they never lose a negotiation. And so all of this noise, all of this fuzziness, and there's this agreement and that agreement, that is just right out of the Iranian playbook of not actually having to commit to anything. As we madly scramble around and try to set up a $300 billion reconstruction fund, let them sell oil, withdraw our military assets. I mean, you almost couldn't make this stuff up.
My only question, though, too, is, yeah, we did sink some of their bigger ships, but Iran relies on those fast boats, which are those smaller ships. And, when I see the satellite imagery, I see hundreds of those fast boats, the Saipan Navy, that are still, in the area. Today, one of these Saipan Navy ships in the Oman route shot down a Singaporean vessel as well. And I guess the move right now from the Trump regime is to ignore stuff like that and whatever. Everything's good, but they hit a ship today, with the Navy. And then the other day they were able to, which is what Trump said escalated the tensions, that one of these Shahed drones hit an Apache helicopter. There's things going on that's obviously not allowing the Strait of Hormuz to just be wide open, though, right?
I'll tell you, Ben, when the story is told, because it has not been adequately told, when the story is told of the military damage that the Iranians were able to inflict on the United States, it's going to be pretty shocking. And we got a little bit of a taste of that when the $88 billion number was put forward. This is what apparently the administration wants Congress to approve for this war that they lost. And I say this just because I was traveling and I got a little bit more of an up close and personal look at some of the damage that was done. I'll tell you what, the Iranians hit our embassies. They hit pretty much all of our military facilities in the area, dozens and dozens of planes and drones downed. Of course, most tragically, the 13 military personnel that we lost here. But congratulations, Mr. President, for sinking the Navy. But boy, did they do a lot of damage to us. And by the way, it's not the Navy that turns out to matter. Let me draw your attention to the Black Sea, where the Ukrainians, without a Navy, the Ukrainians have no Navy, have managed to completely neutralize the Russian Navy using these drones, using both airborne and maritime drones, which is precisely the playbook that the Iranians are playing. Okay, we don't have a traditional battle cruiser, but you know what? We can sink an awful lot of cargo carriers in the Strait of Hormuz with the drones that we have. So, again, Donald Trump saying we sank their Navy, we sank their Navy. It's a little bit like, and they no longer have a mounted cavalry. It's pathetic is what it is.
J.D. Vance was bragging to something called Unheard, that the United Arab Emirates, for the first time, they're speaking with the Iranians. Look what we were able to accomplish, they say, as though that's a boast and spike the football. It's because the American security umbrella in the region is gone. And so they're trying to cut deals with Iran, right, in order to make a deal. Rubio didn't even meet with Saudi Arabia. Trump's bud MBS didn't even meet with Rubio. And, from what I'm hearing, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, other Gulf Cooperation Council countries are trying to hold a reconciliation, council right now in order to do deals with Iran because the American security umbrella is gone. It seems that China swoops in right there and kind of fills the void, and Rubio's there, begging basically, we still got your back. And it seems that, Rubio's being viewed as a clown there, as he's trying to say, yeah, that's not really the MOU. Don't you worry. And no one takes him seriously. Is my assessment generally kind of what you're seeing from your vantage point?
Your assessment is spot on. The Emirates and the other Gulf countries, yes, are now beginning to question the value of the U.S. Security umbrella as they look at the smoldering ruins of a lot of their energy production infrastructure. And number two, they've learned a lesson that the world has learned, which is that which is that the Iranian regime survives. We can throw the best the Pentagon has. The Department of War can unleash all hell and fury, and the Iranian regime not only survives, but is now helmed by a younger, more extreme figure than his father. So, the Persian Gulf countries are bowing to the reality. And by the way, I'm old enough to remember 3 months ago when the president said nothing short of regime change and unconditional surrender will be accepted here. The Gulf countries listened to that, and now they're looking at an empowered Iranian regime, and they're saying, you know what, guess what? We're hedging our bets. We are absolutely hedging our bets for all the reasons that you've outlined.
Well, everything's happening there too. At the ODNI, you have the acting head now, Bill Pulte, has been basically forced upon this agency. We're hearing terminations that are taking place. I want to hear what you have to say. We now also learned before that Tulsi Gabbard's connection to this cult, and that she was apparently getting, I mean, out of the, someone who leads the intelligence committee, the head was like getting orders from some cult guru. And then you layer on top of that, 4-star General Donahue was forced out as well, one of our top, military leaders. All of that's happening while we're surrendering as well. It's like if you were to map out like how you destroy it, it seems like this is like if there is an effective plan, it's effectively destroying everything.
The DNI situation is your classic. The headline should be "Hold my beer," right? So you get Tulsi Gabbard in there with all that's being reported now about how she sort of ran lines verbatim out from her guru, in the service of American national security. And you're like, oh my God, Tulsi Gabbard. And then hold my beer. You like Tulsi? Wait till you see Bill Pulte. At least Tulsi, for all the criticism you might she's a commissioned officer of the United States Armed Forces and was in Congress long enough to learn a little bit something about national security. Bill Pulte, of course, and this is what makes his appointment illegal. Well, there's two things that make his appointment illegal. Number one, zero national security experience at a time, as you point out, that, we're in a conflict in the Middle East. This might be a good time to be at the top of our game on counterterrorism, which is what the ODNI does, amongst other things. But the law also says very specifically that in the absence of an actual DNI, you don't appoint an acting DNI. The principal deputy acts as the DNI. And it just so happens that the principal deputy over there, a guy by the name of Lukash, is an experienced intelligence officer. So, yeah, this is another one of those things where you sort of, Hollywood would never greenlight the script for this because it's just so unbelievable. And that would be funny, but for the fact that we're not talking about incompetence at the Housing Finance Agency, which is what Bill Pulte brought to us previously. We are talking about incompetence in the intelligence community, which, amongst other things, surveils, has guys with guns that jump out of helicopters. And I mean, this is serious, serious stuff that relates directly to the safety and the security of the American people.
That's why I want to end with this and ask you, you sit on a very serious committee, and the people by and large on the committee are very kind of serious members. And so, I mean, you talk about how they've gone, silent in terms of these Republicans, how they're dealing with the MOU. They don't want to talk about it, but without saying any names, can you let us know what's kind of happening behind the scenes? I mean, these are still colleagues of yours. What's being whispered or what's being said about this MOU amongst Republicans in the House who you would consider to be more of the kind of serious ones who you still have some respect for?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll tell you what's happening behind the scenes, but it's telling that in the public statements, almost nobody. And remember, these are Republicans that we're talking about that have spent years justifying the president's crazy behavior. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a single Republican statement saying this is a terrific deal. Let's go. So the fact that you're not hearing that tells you what I can tell you is behind closed doors. Apart from the desire to not talk about it because it's just such an awful thing for them to talk about, is, politically speaking, some relief. So if you're a Republican, you're saying to yourself, you know what, with gasoline prices $1.50, $2 more expensive than they were 3 months ago, with an election coming up, we're toast. We're absolute toast. Now, as you begin to see gasoline prices come down a little bit, nowhere near where they were before the war, but as Republicans are like, oh my God, gasoline prices are coming down. Don't ask me about the MOU, but gasoline prices are coming down. That's kind of what's happening up here.
We appreciate your insight as always, Congressman. Come back on, keep us updated. We appreciate you.
Thank you.